Chapter 1. Baltan Planet within the Tianhui Empire's Malga city. Lin Hao opened his eyes and abruptly sat up from the bed, sweat dripping from his forehead, his gaze fierce and resolute. He had a very long dream, dreaming that his world entered an apocalypse. He struggled to survive in the apocalypse, and was eventually betrayed by a friend, leading to a group of thugs breaking into his residence. In the end, in despair, he pulled the pin on a grenade, taking a large group of people down with him. Lin Hao, currently in a very tense state, was shocked by his surroundings, because it was actually his own villa, with sunlight streaming in, making it feel incredibly warm, almost uncomfortably so. Lin Hao instinctively reached out beside him, but touched something. He picked it up and found it was a mobile phone, which astonished him. Was this just a dream, or is the apocalypse really going to break out? Lin Hao couldn't help but murmur. Then he pinched his arm hard. Hiss. Lin Hao felt a sharp pain in his arm, realizing he was in reality. He picked up his phone, turned it on, and found that it was the sun calendar, May 6th, 2025. He clearly remembered that the apocalypse in his dream broke out on November 7th, 2025, because the civilization of the people of Baltan Planet began to change from that day. Just as Lin Hao was still pondering whether the dream was real or fake, a voice echoed in his mind. Ding! The King of Apocalypse system has successfully bound to the host. Please prepare for the impending end of the world. King of Apocalypse system? Lin Hao was very confused. Ding! This system can help the host survive better in the apocalypse. Currently, this system only offers the system shop and system sign-in functions. The host will receive survival points or obtain skills and supplies every day he signs in. Additionally, this system has a system space, which allows the host to increase the quantity or improve the quality of items stored within the system space. Of course, paper currency and items that have already been amplified are excluded. The system's electronic voice said faintly. Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted. Is this considered cheating? So he asked, System, is everything I dreamed of truly going to happen? Ding! Everything the host dreamed of will be a future reality. The system replied faintly. This sentence made Lin Hao's heart sink. No one wishes for the apocalypse to come, especially since he himself was a relatively wealthy second-generation rich kid. Just as Lin Hao was still processing the information, the system's voice sounded. Ding! Congratulations to the host for receiving a novice gift pack. Does the host wish to sign in today? Sign in, Lin Hao said subconsciously. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully signing in. As this is the host's first sign-in, double rewards are activated. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1 invisibility cloak. After wearing the invisibility cloak, the host can achieve extreme invisibility, with the invisibility duration increased from 6 hours to 12 hours. Does the host wish to open the novice gift pack? Open, Lin Hao said without hesitation. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining 400 million in starting capital. All sources of funds are legal. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a top-secret stock investment tip. The host can earn a large amount of funds through stocks to prepare for the arrival of the apocalypse. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1 M9 pistol, 300 rounds of ammunition, and 10 magazines. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the skill 1,000 Faces. This skill is a specialized spy makeup technique that allows the host to possess more faces. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1 Baltan Planet Universal Passport. The host can use this passport to travel to any country and region on Baltan Planet. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Global Language Mastery skill. The system's voice sounded 6 times in total, and Lin Hao received 6 rewards. Strictly speaking, all 6 rewards were extremely useful. Not to mention anything else, he now had his starting capital. Even better, Lin Hao also had industries under his name. Lin's Fresh Food was one of his industries. Moreover, he had also served in the Imperial Special Operations Forces. The entire Ling group was, in theory, the inheritance his parents left him. But his parents suddenly died in a car accident, and he had doubts about the cause of their death. Because ever since his parents died, he only retained absolute control over Lin's Fresh Food, and the rest of Ling Group's businesses had nothing to do with him. They were all controlled by his beloved uncles. He suspected that this group of uncles had orchestrated his parents' car accident. The industry his parents left him was not very large, but it was one of the largest fresh food supermarket groups in Malga City. To put it bluntly, Lin Group controlled a significant amount of survival supplies in Malga City. In order to survive in the apocalypse, Lin Hao had to make all necessary preparations. He found a pen and paper and began to plan his next steps. In his dream, he survived in the apocalypse for a full 7 years. And in those 7 years, he could say he experienced too much. First and foremost, he needed to get money, because only with money could he buy more supplies. The second thing was to acquire a large number of weapons. This could be done in the neighboring country of the Tianhui Empire, the Gamma Kingdom. It could be said that as long as you had money, you could buy all light weapons and corresponding ammunition circulating on the market in the Gamma Kingdom. At the same time, whether for his own safety in the future or for revenge, he needed an army absolutely loyal to him. Building an army could not be done without a large amount of weapons and ammunition support. The third thing was to go abroad for zero-cost shopping. Since the system had given him an invisibility cloak, it would be a disservice to the system's gift if he didn't seize the opportunity for zero-cost shopping. The fourth thing was to acquire a large batch of living supplies. This was truly not a difficult task for him. Whether it was zero-cost shopping abroad or large-scale purchases domestically, he had the name of Lin's Fresh Food, which made it more convenient. The fifth thing was to build an underground shelter. However, the immediate priorities were still getting money and getting guns. After all, a saying circulated in his dream apocalypse experience: others hoard grain, I hoard guns, my neighbors are my granary. Violence is indispensable in the apocalypse. And whether it was a coincidence or a reason, almost all military and political officials at all levels in countries around the world were wiped out by various disasters, by over 90% at the beginning of the catastrophe. This led to all countries globally falling into a state of anarchy at the outset. In such a state, only violence was the sole guarantee for survival in the apocalypse. Moreover, Lin Hao vaguely felt that the system seemed to want him to build his own army. After thinking this, he directly asked, "System, can I recruit an army absolutely loyal to me through you?" Ding! Once the host possesses his own level 2 underground shelter, he can purchase a base vehicle and then build barracks to recruit an army and related personnel who are absolutely loyal to the host. Additionally, the host can also exchange some real-world items for survival points. Recruiting an army, purchasing a base vehicle, and building some system-provided structures all require survival points. After hearing the system's prompt, Lin Hao seemed to see himself building a very powerful army. Whether for revenge or for his own safety, building an armed force was imperative. Chapter 2. Lin Hao calmed himself down, then directly logged into an account, which was his own stock trading account. He invested all his funds, including but not limited to the 400 million funds given by the system, plus all the funds brought to him by Lis Fresh Food and a small portion of Lis Group shares, totaling 2 billion, into his stock trading account. Then, based on the confidential stock trading information provided by the system's newbie gift pack, he began to invest and buy, directly going all in with 2 billion. Interestingly, this stock was precisely Lis Group, which originally belonged to his parents. Now controlled by his uncles, Lin Hao directly initiated a short-selling operation based on the system's information. Lis Group's current main business is so-called new energy vehicles, a product that has only appeared on Baltem Planet for a few years. However, this stock information revealed a piece of news. Lis Group's new energy vehicle batteries have a huge defect, and the news will be exposed within 2 days. Lis Group itself is a listed company, and its shares can be circulated on the market. Lin Hao intended to short sell Lis Group, as expected. Under the leverage of his 2 billion funds, Lis Group's stock quickly began to show problems. Indeed, the next day, Lis Group was exposed for technical issues with their batteries. Subsequently, through this short-selling maneuver, Lin Hao's funds directly surged to a staggering 24 billion. With 24 billion in funds, he could directly go abroad for procurement before going abroad. Lin Hao still needed to sign in with the system. The system's voice sounded, "Ding! Congratulations, host! You have received 10,000 survival points. The sign-in reward was better than nothing. A consolation prize, Lin Hao thought to himself. Then, Lin Hao decisively used the 1,000 faces skill given by the system to disguise himself. With his universal passport, he smoothly arrived in the neighboring country, the Kingdom of Gamma. The northern neighbor of the Kingdom of Gamma often experiences wars, so there is a place at the border between the two countries called the Lada region. This region can be said to be the world's largest private firearms and ammunition workshop. There is a legend that the number of firearms in the entire Lada region is enough to arm an army group's soldiers. The truth of this matter is unclear, but Lin Hao believes it should be true. He bought a local-style robe, wore a headscarf, and applied makeup. He looked no different from the local people. Speaking the local language, he found a guide and went to the Lada region to buy guns. It can be said that if you don't have a local guide to lead the way in the Lada region, outsiders simply cannot enter. Led by the guide, Lin Hao, speaking the local language, began to follow the guide into the Lada region. Strictly speaking, the Lada region is about the size of a county town. All the shops on both sides of the roads in the entire region sell various firearms and ammunition. But to purchase firearms and ammunition in large quantities, one must have the consent of the local tribal chief. The character Lin Hao was disguised as at this time was a weapons procurement officer for an organization in the Nanjia prison region. With the guide's introduction, he successfully met the tribal chief. Respected Chief Hertu, for the sake of our true religion, please save our compatriots in the prison region. Lin Hao spoke in fluent local language. Upon hearing the language and seeing the other party's appearance, the chief realized they shared the same religious faith and immediately felt a great fondness for Lin Hao. Sir, please follow me. We will discuss the procurement details. Since the Tianhui Empire is one of the 3 major empires in the world, the Tianhui Empire's currency is universally accepted throughout the planet, saving the trouble of currency exchange. Therefore, Lin Hao directly used the Tianhui Empire's currency to pay for this arms deal. In this arms deal, Lin Hao purchased a total of 100,000 AKM rifles and 50,000 imitation HK416 series rifles. There were also 5,000 PKM machine guns, 1,000 DSHK heavy machine guns, 2,000 self-defense pistols, 100 Barrett sniper rifles, and 100 SVD sniper rifles. In addition, there was enough accompanying ammunition for these firearms to be used until they were deprecated. Besides these light weapons, there were also 500 rocket launchers with accompanying ammunition, as well as 2,000 60mm mortars, 500 120mm mortars, and 3 D-30 howitzers. Each cannon was equipped with a full 300 rounds of shells, and the rocket launcher ammunition was a full 100 rounds per rocket launcher. This transaction directly cleared out the entire arms inventory of the Lada region. Lin Hao paid approximately 2 billion for this, and the tribal chief generously gifted Lin Hao an additional 2,000 micro-submachine guns. After the other party transported the arms to the designated location, they left. After confirming everything was correct, Lin Hao stored all the arms in his space and then paid on time. In just a few days, Lin Hao acquired a large quantity of arms. As the arms deal was completed, the system's prompt sound came, ding, detected that the host has purchased a large batch of weapons and ammunition. The quality of this batch of weapons and ammunition varies. The system will use an amplification method to make these firearms and ammunition of the same quality as those produced by a regular arms factory. Does the host need amplification? System, do your amplification methods have a way to account for both quantity and quality? Lin Hao asked. Ding! Yes, the host can choose a double amplification enhancement that increases the quantity of these weapons and ammunition by 50 times and gives them the quality of a regular arms factory. Then amplify them that way. Lin Hao said. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have obtained 5 million brand new AKM rifles, 2.5 million HK416 automatic rifles, 250,000 brand new PKM machine guns, 50,000 DSHK 12.7mm heavy machine guns, 100,000 Glock 17 self-defense pistols, 5,000 each of Barrett 12.7mm sniper rifles and SVD sniper rifles, and 100,000 MAC-10 micro submachine guns. Regarding ammunition, the host will receive 40 billion rounds of brand new, qualified 7.62mm rifle ammunition, 20 billion rounds of 5.56mm rifle ammunition, 10 billion rounds of 7.6254R rifle machine gun ammunition, 1 million spare barrels, 1 million metal ammunition belts, and 100,000 hand-cranked loaders, 100 million rounds of DSHK-compatible 12.7mm machine gun ammunition, 5 million rounds of 7.6254R dedicated sniper ammunition, 5 million rounds of Barrett-compatible sniper ammunition, 200 million rounds of 9mm pistol ammunition. Regarding artillery, the host will receive 25,000 brand new RPG-7 rocket launchers produced by a regular military factory, 100,000 60mm mortars, 25,000 120mm heavy mortars, and 150 D-30 howitzers. Accompanying ammunition, 2.5 million RPG-7 rocket launcher rockets, 30 million 60mm mortar shells, 7.5 million 120mm mortar shells, and 45,000 122mm artillery shells. Chapter 3. Li Ming also took stock of his equipment. How to describe it? The quantity of light weapons was terrifying, and the ammunition was sufficient. But he still hoped that the apocalypse would not come, because the apocalyptic experience he saw in his dreams was simply a living hell. Typhoons, torrential rains, floods, extreme cold, extreme heat, earthquakes, nearly every stage was a purgatory. Although he had the system's golden finger, he still lacked a sufficient sense of security, because the things he experienced in his dreams made him shudder. They were too terrifying. It could be fully described in one sentence. It was a dark and man-eating world. If hell had 19 layers, then this most terrifying hell was undoubtedly the human world. No wonder in myths and legends, banishing immortals to the mortal realm was considered a punishment. This truly was the most cruel punishment. In historical books of the past, a phrase often appeared. In years of great famine, people ate each other. Li Ming always thought that ancient historical books were too simplistic, but only after personally experiencing these events in his dreams did he understand the true meaning of those 6 characters. These were scenes of human tragedy, because when people are hungry and face a survival crisis, they truly can do anything. At such times, humans had completely reverted to their primal state. All actions were governed by the survival instincts of beasts. Li Ming truly wished the apocalypse would never arrive, but the system seemed to know his inner thoughts and solemnly warned. Ding, esteemed host! This system must solemnly remind you that everything you experienced in your dream is a fact that will happen in the future. The end of the world will surely come. Please, host, do not harbor unrealistic fantasies. The system's voice completely shattered all of Li Ming's illusions. He looked at the mountains of weapons and ammunition piled up in his system space, and a surge of heroic spirit welled up in his heart. So what if the apocalypse comes? He had so many guns and ammunition and a golden finger. What was there to fear? At this moment, Li Ming's heart became extremely cold and ruthless. This was also related to what he experienced in his dreams. It could be said that the current Li Ming did not trust anyone. He only trusted himself and the system, because in his dream, he trusted his friends too much, which led to him being betrayed by trusted friends and dying. The next plan was to acquire large quantities of fuel and energy. The region with the most crude oil resources on the entire Baltan planet was this vast desert area, where the Tiantuo Kingdom and a series of other small kingdoms existed. This was the central area of the entire planet. It could be said that all wars and disputes on the entire planet were related to the abundant energy here, so this was also one of the most chaotic regions globally. There were the most oil refineries and massive crude oil reserves in the world here. Li Ming had to acquire large quantities of petroleum, crude oil, and natural gas. At the same time, he also needed to acquire another batch of heavy weapons and firearms here. Anyway, he had a lot of money on hand. The currency of the Tianhui Empire was still very strong and could be used globally. Why not spend the money now instead of waiting for it to become waste paper after the apocalypse? Today was the third day, and Li Ming had already arrived at the Tiantuo Kingdom. He continued to sign in. Ding! Congratulations to the host for acquiring the world's top-tier hacker technology. Li Ming was overjoyed. He immediately used his hacking skills to register a very secret account for himself on the dark web, and then placed a very large arms order on the dark web. The dark web is generally a website for special transactions. It can be said that as long as you have money, you can buy anything you want here. Except for some very special goods, it can basically meet your needs. The arms order Li Ming placed contained nothing unusual: 40 main battle tanks and self-propelled howitzers from the Bare North Kingdom, and 107 rocket launchers. Also, 30 tracked infantry fighting vehicles and 30 wheeled infantry fighting vehicles from the Bare North Kingdom, 300 military all-terrain trucks, 1,000 anti-tank missiles, 2,000 man-portable air defense missiles, 3 state-of-the-art armed helicopters, plus a large amount of accompanying ammunition. In addition, there were 300,000 sets of bulletproof vests and bulletproof helmets that could withstand rifle bullets head-on, 50,000 sets of stab-proof suits and riot helmets, 1,000 alloy spears, 1,000 alloy machetes, 1,000 bulletproof shields, 300,000 gas masks, and corresponding anti-chemical and anti-biological protective suits, etc. There were also 20,000 HK-41 sniper rifles, 1,000 additional rifles, 5,000 PKM general-purpose machine guns, and large quantities of accompanying ammunition for these equipments, as well as numerous light weapon tactical accessories, 5,000 Arctic cold-weather tents, 50,000 sets of Arctic cold-weather combat suits, 300,000 military backpacks, 100 snowmobiles, 50,000 Arctic cold-weather sleeping bags, and 300,000 military first aid kits and 300,000 military canteens, etc. All in all, it would cost him 7 billion yuan. Li Ming quickly deposited the 3 billion yuan deposit into the account. This deposit was mainly to prevent Li Ming from breaking the contract and causing losses to the other party. Of course, the large arms dealer trading with Li Ming would also have a deposit. If the arms dealer tried to cheat, then the arms dealer's deposit of tens of billions would also be transferred to Li Ming's account. You could say the dark web in this world is very shady, but since its establishment, there has not been a single instance of such a large-scale arms transaction involving a double cross. After Li Ming completed the order, he began to wait for the other party to deliver the goods. The transaction address he chose was precisely a no-man's land. Generally speaking, transactions in such places were safer. In other words, as long as the other party delivered the goods and the buyer deemed them satisfactory, the other party would pay the remaining funds. The deposit at least guaranteed the credibility of both parties in this arms transaction. Soon, night fell. Li Ming directly put on his invisibility cloak and set out. For convenience of movement, he also applied makeup, disguised himself as a local, and drove a local second-hand car straight to the transaction location. After putting on his invisibility cloak, he patiently waited for the other party to deliver the goods. Soon, at 11 p.m., a very large convoy indeed arrived at the transaction location. 60-ton semi-trailers drove in one after another. Li Ming counted, there were hundreds of such semi-trailers, plus military all-terrain trucks. These vehicles stopped directly at the transaction location. And then people started getting off the vehicles. All the people on the vehicles evacuated. Li Ming observed carefully and, after confirming there were no issues, activated the invisibility cloak effect. After the system confirmed the quantity and quality were correct, he directly collected everything within a 10-meter radius centered on himself into his space. According to the previous agreement, these trailers were also given directly to Li Ming. Li Ming was also generous and paid the remaining balance. This transaction directly became the largest arms deal in the history of the dark web. Chapter 4. After Li Ming acquired so many weapons, he felt incredibly secure, because these heavy weapons had all received a 50-fold quantity increase and performance enhancement from the system, making them far more powerful than the main combat equipment of any country in the world today. As for the light weapons, they were all increased by 100-fold. The system detected that these weapons and ammunition were products from regular military factories, so no performance increase was needed, only a hundredfold quantity increase. Looking at the mountains of weapons and ammunition, he was filled with a sense of security. How does that saying go? All your feelings of insecurity stem from insufficient firepower. He knew that in his dreams, he had seen many heavy and light weapon stockpiles of various countries, armies lost in the cruel natural disasters. So every gun and every bullet was a non-renewable resource, extremely precious. It can be said that in the apocalypse, those who possess a large number of light weapons are generally major powers. Ordinary forces usually don't have many guns and ammunition, as every bullet fired means one less. As for forces with a small amount of heavy weaponry, those would have to be superpowers. After acquiring these heavy weapons, he directly used the invisibility cloak to go near the Tiantua Kingdom's oil fields and refineries. He had to zero-yuan purchase a wave first. His system space was a massive 10,000 square kilometers in size and 100 meters high, so he could fit any amount of stuff. Soon, he drove to a spot 5 kilometers from the refinery, got out of the car, activated his invisibility cloak, and began a rapid sprint. After running 5 kilometers, he infiltrated the refinery. With the system's assistance, he quickly found the finished oil storage area. Ming didn't care what kind of oil was in these tanks, or if they contained natural gas in large containers. He just frantically collected them into his space. After all, it was a free 0 yuan purchase, so he just loaded as much as he could. The refinery's storage area, covering a full 4 square kilometers, had all its oil tanks completely emptied by Ming. Not a single drop of oil was left behind. After emptying the warehouse, he directly used his invisibility to infiltrate the adjacent oil field. Many barrels of crude oil that had been extracted were also completely taken by Ming. Throughout that entire night, Ming visited 3 refineries and 2 oil fields, completely clearing out all the warehouses of these 5 facilities. The next day, global news broke out about a shocking case. A massive oil theft occurred in the Tiantua Kingdom, with a total of 5 refineries. 1 million tons of finished oil stolen, plus 40 million tons of crude oil also mysteriously disappearing. Ming, meanwhile, was sound asleep in his hotel. He had returned to the hotel while invisible, so no one knew he was the one who committed this major crime. He had to go out again tonight to get more oil. You know, oil is not just fuel. It's also an industrial raw material, known as black gold, the lifeblood of industry. Anyway, after these crude oils were increased 100-fold by the system, he had a total of 4 billion tons of crude oil plus 100 million tons of finished oil. He could say he wouldn't use it all in his lifetime, but if he were to build an army, this oil still wouldn't be enough. He had to keep stealing oil. After waking up, Ming started eating. After finishing his meal, he performed his routine sign-in. Ding! Congratulations to the host for acquiring a special ability, Earth Evasion. The host can use this ability for 6 hours daily. Good stuff! With this, I can steal even more things. Ming was overjoyed. He then continued to rest. After dark, Ming began his operation. Due to the major case from last night, all refineries and oil fields, regardless of size, had heightened security today. But it couldn't stop Ming, who was completely invisible the whole time. Ming stole with great satisfaction, making these people watch helplessly as their oil disappeared right before their eyes. Yet they could do nothing. It was truly exhilarating and stimulating. Ming stole for 3 full days in the Tiantua Kingdom, changing hotels 3 times during that period. After the amplification, he acquired a total of 15 billion tons of crude oil, 600 million tons of various finished oils combined, and 5 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. It's safe to say Ming had a blast stealing. Since his purpose here was complete, Ming directly left the Tiantua Kingdom and headed to his next stop, the Bald Eagle Empire. The Bald Eagle Empire is one of the world's 3 great empires, alongside Tianhui and the Zhongbei Empire. In the past, the Bald Eagle Empire was once the overlord of the planet, but it later began to decline. However, a lean camel is still bigger than a horse, and it remains one of the world's 3 great empires. Ming's main purpose in going to the Bald Eagle Empire was to 0 yuan purchase a large quantity of guns and ammunition, as well as a large amount of living supplies, machine tools, various industrial equipment, medical equipment, and to raid their military bases. This included, but was not limited to, their Navy and Air Force. If anyone knew Li Ming's true intentions, everyone would probably think he was fantasizing. But in reality, Li Ming genuinely intended to rob the Bald Eagle Empire. Moreover, he intended to create enough trouble for the Bald Eagle Empire. With the use of a universal passport, Li Ming successfully arrived in the Bald Eagle Empire. On his first day in the Bald Eagle Empire, he directly used his invisibility and Earth evasion to raid the Bald Eagle Empire's mysterious Area 13, completely clearing out all military industrial research data, various computers, and high-tech processing equipment inside. The next day, he ransacked a large military base of the Bald Eagle Empire. 30 of the world's most advanced Warhawk-class stealth fighters, plus 15 Agile-class stealth strategic bombers, were all taken by Li Ming in one swoop. Also ransacked were large quantities of matching ammunition from their armory. Over the next month or so, Li Ming successively robbed large military bases in various regions of the Bald Eagle Empire for their weapons and ammunition, acquiring large quantities of light and heavy weapons, as well as numerous advanced fighter jets, strategic bombers, and armed helicopters. At the same time, the Bald Eagle Empire's remaining 12 Sea Eagle-class nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, each displacing over 150,000 tons, and a large number of accompanying escort fleets, all fell into Li Ming's hands. Although there were crew members on duty, it was still useless. Li Ming's range for collecting items had expanded to a 50-meter radius. With just a thought, he could directly absorb things. As for the personnel inside, they were automatically filtered out and eliminated by the system space. Relying on Earth evasion and invisibility, Li Ming directly became a global master thief. Because he was cautious enough, no one saw him, nor did anyone know his appearance or where he actually was. He not only raided military ports, but also did not spare the containers at civilian ports. Li Ming stole over 60 ocean-going fishing vessels, more than 2 million containers, and over 300 cargo ships throughout the Bald Eagle Empire. In addition, he also completely ransacked various advanced industrial equipment, advanced machine tools, various advanced high-value medicines, various conventional medicines, daily necessities, hardware, steel, and various metals from the enterprises under various capital giants. In short, anything Li Ming deemed necessary for himself, he would unhesitatingly take directly. The entire intelligence department of the Bald Eagle Empire was mobilized to investigate, but they still couldn't find anything. Chapter 5. During that month in the Bald Eagle Empire, he, relying on the various rewards provided by the system, along with his invisibility cloak and special tunneling ability, single-handedly threw the entire Bald Eagle Empire into disarray. Li Ming not only plundered a vast quantity of firearms, ammunition, advanced fighter jets, strategic bombers, and naval vessels, but also a significant amount of army equipment. It could be said that with these armaments stolen by Li Ming, the Bald Eagle Empire's own military strength would undoubtedly be greatly weakened. Furthermore, a large number of civilian ships, including cargo ships, were also completely ransacked by Li Ming. Basically, every port in the Bald Eagle Empire had been visited by Li Ming, and container cargo ships could not escape the fate of being stolen by him. In addition to the gun shops and the vast quantities of gold stored in banks that Li Ming robbed, various materials such as crude oil, industrial raw materials, medicines, seeds, grains, and fresh produce from different regions have piled up into small mountains in Li Ming's system space. Especially after being amplified by the system, the quantity reached an astonishing level. To put it this way, even if Li Ming were to feed 10 million troops, these supplies would be enough for him to use for at least 50 years. Besides these materials, he also robbed a large number of supermarkets, acquiring a considerable amount of daily necessities. In short, Li Ming's main principle was to never leave empty-handed. He had to rob fiercely. Anyway, the system space has the function of preventing the passage of time, meaning that whatever goes in comes out exactly the same, with identical function and freshness, completely unaffected. In the Bald Eagle Empire, Li Ming roamed and committed crimes, robbing for a full month and a half, which directly led to severe material shortages in many regions of the Bald Eagle Empire. Additionally, he also collected all 5 Great Lakes, which were amplified and recycled by the system, yielding a whopping 40 trillion survival points. For Li Ming, What do I care about the lives and deaths of you foreigners? I robbed it with my own ability. After disrupting the entire Bald Eagle Empire, Li Ming directly took a plane to the Rising Sun Kingdom. As a neighbor of the Tianhui Empire, the Rising Sun Empire has always been an island nation with very poor domestic resources. Li Ming decided to cause some trouble for it as well. Although the Rising Sun Empire's resources are scarce, it did not prevent Li Ming from making things worse for them. Without further ado, Li Ming operated in the Rising Sun Empire for half a month, and a significant amount of the Rising Sun Empire's daily necessities and military supplies were stolen by Li Ming, resulting in direct economic losses of nearly 1 trillion planetary coins. Not only were there losses of daily necessities, but also a large number of weapons and equipment, and many industrial facilities also disappeared. It can be said that Li Ming's actions directly plunged the Rising Sun Kingdom into complete chaos. They mobilized the entire country's resources to investigate, but found nothing. As Li Ming was too cunning and left no traces, he basically went out invisible and returned invisible, only revealing his true form after returning to his room. The third place Li Ming visited was the Southern Monkey Country, one of the Tianhui Empire's former vassal states, which had been vacillating between sides in recent years. And Li Ming had no good impression of it. When Li Ming arrived in the Southern Monkey Country, it was already mid-July, a relatively hot time. Li Ming still operated by day and night, moving invisibly. Therefore, hotels could not detect any abnormality with him. He changed hotels every day, making it difficult to discover his situation. The main task Li Ming needed to accomplish in the Southern Monkey Kingdom was to rob the Southern Monkey Kingdom's grain reserves. The Southern Monkey Kingdom had built a very large grain storage area in its central region, which stored enough grain for the entire nation to eat for a year. As long as Li Ming successfully took out this storage area, the Southern Monkey Kingdom would have only a dead end in the apocalypse. Without further ado, Li Ming invisibly left the hotel in the dead of night, then drove his used car straight to the storage area. Given Li Ming's formidable reputation, all countries worldwide began to strictly guard key areas to prevent this terrifying thief from targeting their nation. The Southern Monkey Kingdom was no exception. They were well aware of the importance of this grain storage area, so they directly dispatched troops to guard it, preventing anyone from coveting their grain. However, because the Southern Monkey Kingdom's army was not particularly strong in combat, Li Ming, driving invisibly, walked past them in broad daylight, and they didn't notice anything. Then Li Ming directly activated his grand scavenging technique, taking a full 5 days to collect all 15 million tons of grain stored in the entire storage area. 15 million tons of rice and other grains. That's simply an astronomical figure. Looking at the 1.5 billion tons of amplified grain in his space, the sense of accomplishment was simply irresistible. Most people find it hard to understand why Li Ming, despite having the system space amplification function, still worked so hard to rob others. Because Li Ming had a really hard time in his dream. It was a man-eating, dark apocalypse. In such an apocalypse, no matter how much food and supplies there are, it never feels enough. Because he lived in the apocalypse of his dream for 7 years, and the painful feeling of hunger is something he will never forget in this life. It was too damn painful. So, after receiving a clear answer from the system, Li Ming was absolutely determined to acquire grains and supplies. Even if he couldn't finish them all in his lifetime, he still couldn't help but go for it. After all, only God knows when this apocalypse will end. As a man who will rebuild civilization in the future, the more grain, the better. After finishing with the Southern Monkey Country, his next step was to directly act against the White Elephant Kingdom. He acted decisively and without mercy, completely plundering the White Elephant Kingdom's ports and all its grain storage areas. Then he went to West Saint Continent and also looted everywhere, virtually robbing every kingdom and small country in that large area, leaving these nations short of clothing, food, and with scarce supplies. After this comprehensive looting, Li Ming had already filled 2.5 tenths of his space, which covers an area of 10,000 square kilometers. At this moment, his space was densely packed with containers, stacked in piles and various types of rice, cooking oils, and seasonings, all neatly sorted by the system. Additionally, there was meat. He had the system roughly estimate, and after amplification, The meat Li Ming plundered from various countries included 85 million tons of pork, 95 million tons of beef, 70 million tons of lamb, and a total of 250 million tons of poultry meat. As for vegetables, various types of vegetables combined amounted to approximately 300 million tons, and various crop seeds totaled nearly 5 million tons. The quantity of fertilizers was too numerous to count, enough for the entire Tianhui Empire to use for a year. Furthermore, the various rare daily medicines he plundered were measured in tons, and the imported medical consumables were an astronomical figure, with values calculated in trillions. There was also a large amount of industrial equipment, too numerous to count. It's hard to imagine how much he stole in total. It can be said that the direct economic loss of the White Elephant Kingdom amounted to 800 billion planetary coins. The Southern Monkey Kingdom's loss was 500 billion. The Bald Eagle Empire's loss was measured in trillions. And as for the Tiantuo Kingdom's loss, it was also in trillions. Li Ming, by his own power, successfully threw the entire world into chaos. On August 20th, 2025, according to the Sun calendar, Li Ming successfully returned to the Tianhui Empire. Chapter 6. However, did Li Ming think he was done? Not at all. The next thing he wanted to do was to collect the largest freshwater lake, Beihai, to gain more survival points. And by the way, collect the water from some excellent freshwater resource areas. Anyway, they were all used by some businesses, so it wasn't excessive for him to take a portion. Without further ado, Li Ming collected the freshwater lake, Beihai, within just 1 month. A significant amount of excellent freshwater resources from all over the country were also collected into the system, spaced and preserved. Then Li Ming returned to Li's Fresh Food. Although he had been away for several months, this did not hinder Li's Fresh Food from operating and profiting normally, because with the existence of professional managers, Li Ming could completely be a hands-off boss. After he returned to the company, the general manager immediately reported the performance of the past few months. Mr. Li, over the past 3 months, our Li's Fresh Food has had an average monthly turnover of about 90 million, with a net profit of about 8.1 million per month, the general manager reported. Li Ming nodded. Zhang manager, you've worked hard these past few months. This month you will receive an extra 100,000 yuan bonus. Also, I need to meet with some suppliers today to discuss future supply in detail. Yes, Mr. Li, I will arrange it for you immediately. This Zhang manager was an old employee left by Li Ming's parents. It could be said that Zhang manager was relatively trustworthy. Of course, it was only relatively. After experiencing that dream, Li Ming would not trust anyone. He still had over 15 billion in cash that he hadn't spent yet. He decided to massively procure other goods under the name of Li's Fresh Food. The supply of these fresh foods had to be increased significantly. Soon, Li Ming met with these bosses from the large fresh food wholesale market. Li Ming spoke very clearly with them. He was going to make big moves recently and needed a large quantity of goods. As long as they delivered, his supermarkets could take whatever they had, especially fruits, vegetables, and meat. They just needed to send them to the designated location. They could even notify other businesses to supply together. These suppliers were very happy to hear about such a good opportunity. They immediately offered Li Ming various discounts and signed contracts on the spot. Li Ming made an initial payment of 1 billion, asking them to prepare goods worth 1 billion for the first batch. But the quality of the goods had to be good, and the delivery speed had to be fast. The Tianhui Empire generally does not conduct relevant investigations into the circulation of civilian living materials, especially since Li's Fresh Food also spread rumors that it was preparing to expand its store scale and enter industries such as medicine, hardware, daily necessities, and supermarkets. Soon, he had already begun to invest a small portion of funds to make moves in this area, directly leveraging this wave of rumors to acquire a large amount of hardware, daily necessities, supermarket household items, and a large quantity of various medicines, etc. After all, he was a second-generation rich and also had a company, so the imperial government didn't pay much attention to him. After all, there were many people richer than him in the country. Thus, Li Ming continuously spent the money he had, converting it into various materials. After all, he had over 15 billion in funds, and that 15 billion was quite durable. In addition to these items, He also procured a large number of generators, coal, charcoal, gas tanks, huge water storage tanks, various household appliances, and a massive amount of solar power generation equipment, transformers, assault boats, rubber boats, seawater desalination devices, sewage filtration and purification equipment, and so on. Furthermore, he purchased an astronomical amount of building materials. After all this was done, the time had already reached October. Throughout September and August, the newly opened pharmacies and supermarkets under Li Ming's control had all opened one after another. Li Ming opened these stores not for profit, but merely as a better excuse to hoard supplies. Li Ming took the opportunity to acquire a large quantity of various materials. Drug quantities were measured in tons, and there were also various plant medicinal materials, various advanced medical equipment, etc., which were massive. Various computers and other electronic devices, drones, etc., were counted in thousands. By the end of September, he had also bought a large quantity of various grain crop seeds, herbal medicine seeds, mushroom spawn bags, and mushroom spores, as well as a large number of farm tools, various agricultural machinery, nutrient solutions, fertilizers, various high-quality planting soils, and so on. He also personally went to various canneries and food factories to negotiate large-scale procurement of fruit cans, vegetable cans, various meat cans, and all kinds of food. He also personally went to breeders to purchase large quantities of live, reproducible chickens, ducks, geese, pigs, cattle, sheep, dogs, and rabbits, as well as a large amount of feed. Li Ming discovered that although other living people entering the system, space would be filtered out. Living animals collected into it would enter a dormant state and could continue to be raised after being released. Li Ming was desperately using his time to acquire various materials. Basically, any material he could think of and use, he would spend money to get. Just for tea, he bought dozens of tons of various precious teas, as well as many kinds of fruit trees, tea trees, and plants with special value. Looking at the supplies that occupied 40% of his system space, an unparalleled sense of satisfaction intoxicated Li Ming. Now, only one last important issue remained: building a shelter. The location of the shelter was very important. First, it had to be relatively quiet and sparsely populated. Second, it had to avoid major large rivers to prevent floods, and it could not be located on an earthquake belt. He used to enjoy reading novels, including some post-apocalyptic ones. Based on his experience in the dream, Li Ming felt that these novels were pure nonsense. The protagonist actually builds a shelter in a residential area? Is he trying to die faster? And some imaginative authors directly build houses wrapped in all-metal walls and high-rise residential buildings. What kind of person could come up with such a plot? If you build such an all-metal house, are you sure the load-bearing walls can withstand it? This is purely a thought from someone with a brain clot, without any common sense. Even if you can build such an all-metal house in a high-rise residential building, once it's built, if someone really wants to kill you, it's very easy. They can just swing a sledgehammer and take out the load-bearing wall on the floor below you, and you'll be smashed to death. Or if the enemy is more ruthless, they can just perform a demolition operation, and you'll be buried alive in an iron coffin. What's the point of having a lot of supplies if there's no oxygen? Doing this, your ultimate outcome will be certain death. Residential area houses, to be honest, are barely adequate for daily life. But for modifications, at most, it's just modifying the doors and adding bulletproof glass to the windows. Other modifications are basically unrealistic. Moreover, the sturdiness of residential buildings is simply not good enough. Trying to transform a residential building into a doomsday fortress is nonsense. It's even less reliable and safe than placing a few containers in the mountains. In his opinion, these residential area war gods are pure nonsense. As long as others want to kill you, hiding in that kind of high-rise residential building's tortoise shell is useless. The best way is still like him. Honestly, finding a mountain to build an underground shelter. It has good concealment. He has hoarded a large amount of supplies. He doesn't have to worry about food and drink. And he can also farm and produce soldiers. Such a shelter is the safest. Chapter 7. Li Ming quickly chose a location for the construction of his underground shelter. At this time, the number of survival points in his account was an astonishing 100 trillion points, which he obtained by acquiring the Great Lakes in the North Sea and selling most of them to the system. He then selected a mountainous area as the location for the underground shelter. This mountainous area was not far from Malga City, about 15 kilometers away, with an elevation of about 350 meters, making it a relatively high mountain in the vicinity. After selecting the location, he spent 100,000 survival points directly from the system mall to purchase a blueprint for a level 1 underground shelter. After purchasing the blueprint, the system's voice rang out. Ding! Congratulations, host, for possessing the blueprint for a level 1 shelter. Does the host wish to construct a level 1 shelter? Tongziga, I've looked at this blueprint, and it seems this level 1 shelter is a large underground base complex of about 8 square kilometers, isn't it? Ding! Host is not mistaken. Whatever is on the blueprint can be constructed within it, the system replied. Then what if I want to build heavy industrial bases and light industrial bases? Your blueprint doesn't indicate that. Li Ming asked, puzzled. Ding, esteemed host. A level 1 shelter only meets the host's survival and living needs. Other industrial bases and recruitment needs require the host to purchase a level 2 shelter blueprint and other materials before the level 1 shelter can be expanded and upgraded. A level 2 shelter is approximately 20 square kilometers in area, which can be entirely understood as an underground city. However, everything can only be upgraded after the host establishes a level 1 shelter. After listening to the system's explanation, Li Ming felt that this was not unacceptable. He quickly asked the system, Tongziga, I can't possibly rely on myself to excavate and build this shelter, can I? Ding, esteemed host. There are specialized excavation robots in the system mall. After the robots scan the blueprint, they will excavate according to the blueprint. Based on the current construction difficulty of a level 1 shelter, the host needs to purchase 10 excavation robots, and it will take approximately 3 days to complete the excavation. The system explained. Li Ming hurried to the system mall and indeed found the excavation robots, labeled as WJ1 type robots. According to the system mall's description, these robots have high technological content, are powered by cold nuclear fusion batteries, and their excavation drills and buckets are made of special materials, making them very durable. Basically, one of these robots can work continuously for a month before experiencing various malfunctions. These robots cost approximately 1 million survival points each. Li Ming immediately spent 10 million survival points to buy 10 of them. Subsequently, the eyes of these robots emitted light, began scanning the shelter design blueprint, and then started excavating. At the same time, Li Ming also began to inventory the materials in his space, preparing 500,000 tons of steel, 10 tons of various rare metal materials, and other miscellaneous items such as wires, generators, etc. According to the shelter's design blueprint, these generators were all ordinary generators that Li Ming had not yet amplified. He bought a staggering 20,000 units. System, amplify my diesel generators. Ding! Congratulations, host, for acquiring 500,000 diesel generators and 500,000 gasoline generators. The fuel efficiency of both types of generators has increased by 800%. Noise has decreased by 95%. Reliability has increased by 90%. Durability has increased by 100%. And power generation has increased by 500%. Powerful. It was incredibly powerful. This was Li Ming's true thought at that moment. These generators were simply treasures in the apocalypse. These were originally low-power generators, but now they had become high-power generators. Moreover, a low-power generator that could originally generate power for 8 hours with 1 tank of fuel could now generate power for 64 hours with the same tank of fuel, and the power output would also be increased. Furthermore, both reliability and durability had greatly improved. In addition to these generators, there were also a large number of photovoltaic solar panels, whose quantity and power generation efficiency were simultaneously increased by the system. For the same area of solar panels, what originally provided enough solar power for 1 day of daily use could now provide enough for 7 days of daily use. In addition, equipment such as voltage and current converters also needed to be produced. In short, building such a shelter was not a small expense for Li Ming. When Li Ming had prepared all the necessary supplies, even with his wealth, he felt a bit of a pinch, because the cost for this Level 1 underground shelter amounted to tens of billions of Tianhui Empire currency. Fortunately, he had the hundredfold amplification function. Otherwise, he truly wouldn't be able to afford such a shelter. Tongziga, how does this shelter compare to the Imperial Capital's underground integrated command center? Li Ming couldn't help but ask. Ding, esteemed host, in terms of technological content, their command center cannot compare to the solution provided by this system. Regardless of the aspect, even a level 1 shelter built by this system, as long as the entire planet is not completely destroyed, if the host is in the shelter, you will not die. You just need to know that I am bound to you. If you die, I will also perish. After hearing the system's words, Li Ming was in a good mood. This indicated that he and the system shared a common fate, like grasshoppers on a single rope. The system would definitely support him wholeheartedly, even for its own sake. Time passed quickly. 3 days went by, and the system's prompt sounded. Ding! Congratulations, host! The main framework of the underground shelter has been completed. Now, the host only needs to provide the materials and supplies, indicated on the blueprint. Li Ming unhesitatingly brought out a large pile of supplies. And then the system said, Host, the shelter has officially begun construction. Construction will take approximately 1 week. Please wait patiently, host. After the system finished speaking, the large pile of supplies was covered by a beam of light and then disappeared. Li Ming didn't just wait around. He immediately returned to Malga City and continued to extensively purchase various vegetables, fruits, medicinal herbs, various medical devices, and large quantities of vaccines and other supplies. In the Tianhui Empire, as long as you weren't buying firearms or illicit drugs, generally no one would bother you about purchasing other supplies. Li Ming was absolutely unrestrained in his purchases. While he was waiting for the shelter to be built, more than a dozen canning factories and other food factory owners called him, saying that the goods had been delivered. The canning factories Li Ming found were mostly small ones. Their canned goods were very cheap, with 500 grams tin cans of fruit selling for 3 or 4 yuan online. After Li Ming negotiated with them, the prices of fruit and vegetable cans were directly compressed to 1.5 yuan each, while meat cans were pressed down to 3 yuan each. There was no other reason. Li Ming was ordering too much, an order of 150 million boxers. Although the profit per unit was low, the sheer volume was immense. He was purely their god of wealth. Li Ming's first batch of orders totaled over 150 million boxes. These factories worked day and night to produce them, and eventually, all kinds of canned goods were delivered, along with a large quantity of other supplies, such as instant noodles and biscuits. Chapter 8. These food factories and canneries came one after another to deliver goods, and Li Ming had them unload the goods into Li's Fresh Food's large warehouse, while Li Ming directly began inspecting the goods. After he had the system check and found that the quantity and quality were not bad, he readily paid the money. These factory owners were easy to get along with. They genuinely put in a lot of effort into production and used good raw materials. He paid a total of 1.5 billion in goods, and in addition to the agreed-upon goods, these owners, facing a large client like Li Ming, generously gave an extra batch of goods, allowing Li Ming to receive a lot more. In total, about 40% of these canned goods were fruit preserves, 20% were vegetable preserves, and the remaining 40% were canned meats. Among the fruit preserves, the most common were canned yellow peaches, strawberries, pineapples, oranges, apples, pears, and mixed fruit, with a small number of rarer fruits like strawberries, crab apples, and lychees also canned. As for vegetable preserves, they were quite interesting, including canned mushrooms and large quantities of canned cabbage, radishes, cucumbers, and dried tofu. Some of these were prepared like mixed salads, while others were in different styles, with canned mushrooms being the most delicious. Regarding canned meats, approximately 20 million cans were 1-pound luncheon meat, 20 million boxes of braised pork, 1 million cans of beef, and the rest included canned braised pork with quail eggs, as well as canned fish and various hot pot canned goods made from pork and beef offal. The portions of these canned meats were very generous, with each can weighing about 1 pound and costing only 3 or 4 yuan. To ensure Li Ming paid willingly, these canned meats had a solid content of about 75%, It has to be said that buying directly from the factory is truly cost-effective. It's incredibly cheap. Li Ming didn't feel the slightest bit of pain spending money on these things. After all, paper currency was almost becoming worthless. So why keep the money if not to spend it? Money only has value when it's spent. It's useless if it can't be spent. In the apocalypse, paper currency won't even be used as toilet paper. To exploit the system, Li Ming directly mortgaged his various properties to borrow from the Imperial Bank, securing another 1.5 billion in loans, with a repayment agreement set for 1 year later. This way, he once again had 4 billion in cash, and he spent all of it on a large amount of supplies, except for 1 million that he kept. It must be said that the Tianhui Empire's productivity is truly advanced. With a population of 3 billion across the entire empire, its food self-sufficiency rate can still reach 65%. It should be noted that the Tianhui Empire's terrain is not good. The vast majority of the empire consists of mountainous and hilly terrain, with only 3 true large plains, and only these 3 areas are suitable for large-scale mechanized agriculture. Therefore, once the apocalypse breaks out, it will definitely be a severe blow to the Tianhui Empire. But what does that have to do with Li Ming? The large amount of supplies I bought with money, their ownership is mine. If you have an idea and want to touch my supplies, try it? Li Ming spent 2 billion, so it can be said that he once again bought a large amount of food and canned goods from canneries and food factories. The remaining money went to various snack streets and high-end hotels. And he also purchased fuel-driven 2-wheeled and 3-wheeled motorcycles, as well as many electric vehicles, various dry cell and storage batteries, and a good number of all-terrain vehicles. In short, it was all about buying, buying, buying. His idea was that he couldn't leave any money. The money had to be spent. As for what to do if some foods contain black technology, my friend, this is about surviving the apocalypse. In the apocalypse, are you sure you're still going to be so picky? It's already damn good to have something to eat. Only living people are qualified to eat things with black technology. If people are dead, what's the point of talking about these things? In the apocalypse, don't talk about eating well. If you can eat your fill, you're already ahead of most people. In the apocalypse, people who don't know how to cherish food deserve to die. Li Ming read many apocalypse novels, where the protagonist wasted food in various ways, throwing away food eaten halfway, which was pure nonsense. How could someone who had survived for a while, in the apocalypse in their previous life waste food? This simply doesn't make sense. Li Ming only experienced that kind of apocalypse in his dreams for a full 7 years. These vivid sensations made him feel incredibly real, so he desperately stockpiled various supplies, truly terrified of hunger from his dreams. Hunger can be said to be absolutely the cruelest punishment from God to humanity. The cruelest ways to die in the world are starvation and thirst. These 2 ways of dying will make you feel your life force slowly draining away, and you are powerless as you approach death. This is simply despair. How does the saying go? Death is not terrifying. The feeling of waiting for death is the most terrifying. After Li Ming finished his busy period, he still had 1 billion yuan left. He commissioned people to directly sweep goods from convenience stores and supermarkets across the country, buying large quantities of cigarettes and alcohol, and also ordering a large number of small umbrellas online. The quantity of these supplies that 100 million yuan could buy was absolutely astonishing. In the apocalypse, besides food, water, and medicine, the most valuable supplies are cigarettes, alcohol, and small umbrellas. These few items seem insignificant and not as useful as food. However, in the apocalypse, people live very suppressed lives, so they need supplies like cigarettes and alcohol to increase their sanity and happiness, and small umbrellas also serve this purpose. In the apocalypse, women are actually a type of commodity. But in the apocalypse, once certain diseases are contracted, in a situation where medical care and medicine are scarce, it will definitely be fatal. So the value of such things also rises. Li Ming already owns supermarkets, so purchasing these items would not arouse any suspicion. Everyone would only think that Li Ming might be expanding his business operations. As for the 1.5 billion loan owed to the bank, at that time, the imperial government would be gone, so what's a bank? Moreover, before the natural disaster strikes, Li Ming will definitely take away all the supplies under his industries, not even leaving a small shelf behind. It can only be said that during the period before the Doomsday, Li Ming was incredibly busy, with various large-scale material procurements and so on. It was truly hectic. But no matter how busy he was, when he received the system's notification, he immediately stopped. At this moment, the time had come to October 8th, 2025. On the sun calendar, and the system spoke. Ding, esteemed host, your level 1 shelter has been completed. Please proceed to inspect it. Ding! Congratulations to the host for owning a level 1 shelter. The host is rewarded with 100 Special Forces soldiers. The host can summon them at any time. Ding! Congratulations to the host for already owning a level 1 shelter, which can ensure the host's worry-free survival in the apocalypse. The host is rewarded with 10 million survival points, 1 complete set of heavy industry technical blueprints and technical data, and 1 set of light weapon technical blueprints and technical data. Ding! Detecting that the host has a level 1 base, the host is rewarded with 500 agricultural planting, personnel and 500 aquaculture, personnel and 500 aquaculture. Awesome! Li Ming roared internally. He then drove his off-road vehicle straight into the mountains. This mountain was named Dragon Head Mountain, only about 15 kilometers from Malga City and 20 kilometers from the Empire's largest river, the Sal River, so there was no need to fear even if floods overflowed. He arrived at this mountain, and relying on his previous memory, he reached the location, but he couldn't find the entrance, because this was clearly just a mountain. System, where is the entrance to this underground shelter? Ding! The underground shelter entrance is about to open. Please prepare, host. As soon as the system finished speaking, a faint clicking sound was heard from in front of him. And soon, Li Ming saw the surface of the mountain in front of him actually begin to move. Chapter 9. The gate of this shelter was actually disguised to look exactly like the mountain. He was so close and hadn't even noticed it. Li Ming was shocked. He had to admit the camouflage was really well done. Tong Zige, 10,000 likes to you, Li Ming said inwardly. After Li Ming entered the underground shelter, the gates behind him gradually closed. And as the gates closed, he was now in the passage. And this shelter actually started supplying power. Ding! Esteemed host, your current location is in the upper passage leading to the underground shelter. This passage requires passing through 3 gates before you can take the elevator to enter the main body of the shelter, the true underground base. If the host has weapons and equipment, you can give them to this system, and it will formulate a defense plan for you, installing various weapons within these 3 passages to prevent enemy invasion and protect the host's absolute safety. Li Ming was very surprised. He really didn't expect the structure of this underground shelter to be like this. Soon, under the system's control, the 3 gates opened one by one and then closed one by one. System? What kind of attacks can these 3 gates and the outermost gate withstand? Ding! Replying to the host, each of these 4 gates can individually withstand the simultaneous impact of several nuclear bombs and can directly weaken the nuclear bomb's shockwave while also having radiation protection capabilities. In addition, according to this system's calculations, to truly destroy each of these gates, it would require multiple blasting operations with tons of high-performance explosives to make the gate fall rather than shatter it. In this underground shelter, the host will be in a state of absolute safety, the system prompted. Li Ming nodded, then directly took the elevator and started going down. The elevator ran for about 1 minute before taking him to the main body of the underground shelter, the true underground base. Host, this base is currently a level 1 shelter. Its main functions include solar power generation, and, in emergencies, it can also use high-efficiency generators to ensure the operation of the entire shelter. On weekdays, the solar charging panels, after meeting daily electricity needs, will automatically store any remaining electricity in the base's super battery and power storage boxes for future use. In addition, this shelter covers an area of 8 square kilometers, divided into a living area, a material storage area, a weapon storage area, and an ecological park combining breeding and planting areas. Besides these, there are also 3 medical cabins. These medical cabins basically help the host treat some diseases. that can be treated in a secondary hospital. More serious diseases or injuries will require upgrading to a Level 2 shelter before they can be treated. In addition to these functional areas, there is also a production and manufacturing area, which allows the host to produce and process some materials on a small scale, such as bullets and firearms. There is also a small laboratory, where the host can conduct a series of scientific research. This shelter has undergone special modifications, maintaining a constant temperature between 23 and 26 degrees Celsius, so the host doesn't have to worry about severe cold or extreme heat. It also adopts a special design to ensure smooth ventilation within the shelter, possessing 3 proof capabilities, so there's no need to worry about external pollution entering the shelter. As a Level 1 shelter, it also comes standard with various metal supports and is equipped with earthquake recoil devices, allowing this shelter to be preserved during major earthquakes, capable of withstanding a major earthquake of up to magnitude 13. In an emergency, this shelter also has an emergency oxygen supply device. In the most critical situations, the host can also escape through the shelter's emergency escape passage with a medium-sized escape pod capable of short-term flight, available for the host's use. In short, here the host does not need to worry about any survival or safety issues. Li Ming's eyes lit up as he listened. It was too good. This was simply the best doomsday fortress in the apocalypse. However, in the end, he was still alone and weak, so the plan to recruit an army should be put on the agenda. System, besides solar power and generators, are there no other power supply methods for this shelter? Ding! There are other power supply methods, such as the miniature cold nuclear fusion power station in this system's mall. One station only costs 20 million survival points and can continuously provide power support to the shelter, but only a Level 2 shelter can purchase a miniature cold nuclear fusion power station. This system recommends that the host try to upgrade to a Level 2 shelter, in which case the host can build an industrial zone and produce some heavy equipment himself. Li Ming's heart was scratched like by a cat's paw. Enticed by the system's words, "System, can I recruit an army now?" Ding! Esteemed host, please purchase a base vehicle. After purchasing a base vehicle, the host can build barracks and then recruit an army. But this system still recommends that the host upgrade to a Level 2 shelter before recruiting an army to prevent power shortages. System, purchase the Level 2 shelter blueprint. Li Ming didn't waste words and immediately went into shopping spree mode. Ding! Host spent 200,000 survival points to successfully purchase the Level 2 shelter blueprint. Please prepare the materials, and this system will upgrade the Level 2 shelter for the host for free. Ming immediately began preparing various materials and supplies in the open space, and at the same time, the 10WJ1 type excavation robots started working again, expanding the area of the underground base. Li Ming's eyelids twitched as he saw the materials required in the design blueprint. 1 million tons of steel, 20 tons of rare metals, 20 high-precision machine tools. Besides these, a large number of other industrial equipment and a large amount of medical supplies were also taken out. In addition, there were mountains of various building materials, metals, and so on, all of which made Li Ming's heart ache. Although this amount of materials was just a drop in the ocean compared to what he had obtained, it still pained him. These were all resources. However, when he thought that after the Level 2 shelter upgrade was completed, he would have the strength to stand alone, his heart was still very excited. Ding! Host's materials are prepared. This mission is to upgrade to a Level 2 shelter, which will take 1 week. Please pay attention to system notifications. Soon, with the system's assistance, the Level 2 shelter was under construction and upgrading. Li Ming also left the shelter and returned directly to Malga City, continuing to control the fresh produce supermarkets and industries. Li Ming basically spent all his profits every day to purchase large quantities of materials. To describe him in one sentence, he was obsessed with materials. However, Li Ming's orders also brought a lot of profit to many small factories in the country. In the eyes of these people, Li Ming was simply a god of wealth. This day was Sun Calendar, October 15th, 2025, and the system's voice sounded on time. Chapter 10. Ding! Congratulations, host! You've acquired a Level 2 shelter. The system is gifting you 200 Special Forces soldiers which you can summon at any time. Ding! Congratulations, host! You already possess a level 2 shelter. You are rewarded with 30 million survival points, one set of light industrial technical equipment blueprints and technical data, advanced tank technical blueprints, advanced artillery technical blueprints, advanced infantry fighting vehicle technical blueprints, and related technical data. Ding! Detecting that the host possesses a level 2 shelter, you can now activate the industrial zone function. The system rewards the host with 100 level 3 technical engineers and 3,000 technical workers. Please summon them at any time. Ding! Congratulations, host! You possess a medical center. You are gifted with 10 beautiful female doctors. Ding! Congratulations, host! You possess a medium high-tech laboratory. You are rewarded with 2 top-tier researchers and 30 researchers. At this moment, Li Ming felt as if a pie had fallen from the sky. It was incredibly satisfying. He hadn't expected the system to be so powerful. This was truly the most incredible Tongziki, freely gifting him technical workers, technical engineers, and researchers. Most importantly, he now had doctors, a medical center, and a high-tech laboratory. These were absolutely good news. To some extent, his shelter was now in its most complete form, meaning he already possessed the ability to survive independently of this society. Excellent! Absolutely excellent. After arranging matters for his subordinate companies, Li Ming drove directly to the shelter. He clearly understood that these shelters were his true foundation in the future apocalypse. Even more wonderful was that he already had an army, a full 300 Special Forces soldiers. Upon entering the base, there wasn't much change at first. But after entering the main body, he discovered that the underground base had undergone enormous changes. Firstly, the area had more than doubled. And secondly, many functional zones had changed. Li Ming directly purchased a base vehicle from the system shop. Ding! Congratulations, host! You've spent 3 billion survival points to acquire 1 base vehicle. You are rewarded with 30 million survival points and 100 gene serums. Ding! Detecting that the host possesses a base vehicle, would you like to deploy it? Deploy. Li Ming directly chose a location to deploy the base vehicle. As his command was issued, the base vehicle began to transform like a transformer. After a series of mechanical whirring sounds, the massive base vehicle turned into a factory-like building. Then Li Ming discovered that his system interface had changed. He had actually unlocked the building interface. He immediately chose to construct a barracks. Ding! Host has chosen to construct a barracks, which will cost 30 million survival points and take 48 hours. Please wait patiently, host. After that, the system fell silent. Li Ming immediately summoned all the engineers, technical workers, 10 beautiful female doctors, as well as cultivation and breeding personnel. Everyone respectfully greeted Li Ming. Hello, Commander. Li Ming waved his hand. Hello, everyone. The operation of the base will rely on all of you from now on. We are willing to serve the commander. Soon, everyone began their respective tasks, and Li Ming's base officially started operating. He left a large amount of supplies in the base and also summoned 100 Special Forces soldiers to serve as the base's security force, protecting its safety. The remaining 200 were ready to be summoned at any time to accompany him. Li Ming briefly inspected the base and was very satisfied. At this time, the industrial zone had already begun to operate, especially the heavy industrial zone, which made Li Ming very happy. He clearly understood the importance of heavy industry. In terms of equipment, Li Ming's equipment was definitely the most advanced in the world. But in terms of technical reserves, Li Ming's technical foundation was still very weak. Therefore, what Li Ming needed to do now was to catch up on various aspects and gradually improve his industrial system. Whether you have industrialization or not are 2 different concepts. It can be said that industrialization is definitely a very important link, especially in the apocalypse. In the apocalyptic period, whoever has the ability to industrialize will be the strongest force. Of course, industrialization cannot do without raw material supply and processing and production. What worried Li Ming most was the issue of raw material supply and processing and production. System. In the apocalypse, if I want to mine, do you have a solution? Ding. To answer the host can mine mineral resources by constructing a mine. After the system possesses a base vehicle, it can construct mines and other buildings within a 50-mile radius of the base vehicle's location. This mine is a multifunctional mine that integrates collection and rough processing, and there will be dedicated mining vehicles for mining. Even the most barren and difficult-to-mine minerals can be refined and processed. The host only needs to pay survival points to construct the mine. Holy cow! Ming couldn't help but curse. This thing was too heaven-defying. This is absolutely possible. The system's answer dispelled Ming's doubts and put his mind at ease. The only thing left to do now was to stockpile as many supplies as possible and await the arrival of the apocalypse. Oh, and he still needed to settle accounts with his dear uncles. After all, his parents couldn't have died in vain. He had to find out exactly what happened. However, now was not the best time to act. Once the apocalypse arrived, he would launch a surprise attack on them with powerful firepower. By then, wouldn't they be at his mercy? Soon he summoned 5 more Special Forces soldiers, primarily to scout and monitor the movements of his uncles. After all, he absolutely couldn't let his prey escape. And when it came to revenge, he would never harbor a tiger. As long as he confirmed that the other party was responsible, he would immediately kill them without hesitation. As for those protagonists in many apocalyptic novels who don't kill their enemies, claiming to torment them, that's purely idiotic behavior. Ming's principle was to completely eliminate the enemy whenever he had the chance, preferring to kill 1,000 by mistake than to let one go. As the 5 plainclothes Special Forces soldiers went out to scout, Ming returned to his villa. Looking at his villa and his shares in Li's group, he immediately sold them all. Anyway, such villas were not safe at all in the apocalypse. Instead, they would become prime targets for others, and the shares were useless. He clearly knew that his uncles were coveting his villa and shares, so he might as well sell them to them and swindle them out of a sum of money in the process. He took out his phone and dialed. A voice came from the other end. "My dear cousin, are you looking for me for something?" "Liqiang, I'm planning to sell my villa and the group's shares. Are you buying?" "Ah, are you really going to sell them?" Liqiang was very surprised. "Cut the nonsense. Do you want them or not? Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Just tell me yes or no." "Yes, of course I want them." "Wait a moment. Can we meet in person?"